I'm showing you how to make my unbelievably yummy baked mac and cheese. It has a sophisticated flavor that us adults will love, but it's also classically cheesy, so the kids will gobble it up too. And the best part is, no one will know it's loaded with clean, nutrient-dense ingredients, including butternut squash, onions, garlic, cottage cheese, and almond flour. The butternut squash is oven roasted and then blended smooth with sauteed onions and garlic. Then they're added to a creamy gluten-free sauce with tons of shredded cheese. The buttery crumble on top is made with almond flour and baked to toasted golden perfection. Combined with your favorite pasta noodles, this dish tastes as impressive as it will look on your serving table. We're going to start by roasting our butternut squash. This is my favorite method because it's super easy and it also enhances the flavor. So we're going to start by cutting off the ends. Just want to take a sharp knife and just push in about 1/2 inch and just gradually work your way around the squash. And then once you get to your starting point, you can push in a little bit harder and then that end will just pop right off. And then we'll repeat for the bottom of the squash. And off comes the bottom. Now we want to set our squash upright and then we're going to cut it down the center. So we'll very carefully push down with our knife, keeping our hands on top. And then we'll just use kind of like a rocking motion back and forth to gradually work the knife down through the squash until we get to the bottom, making sure our fingers are out of the way, and then we can cut all the way through. And then we can open the squash, which exposes the seed area, and then we'll just take a spoon and we'll quickly scrape out the seeds. It's a little slimy, but not too bad. And then we'll save these seeds to roast later. Next, you'll want to take a baking sheet and then just line it with a piece of parchment paper. And this is going to make cleanup much easier. And then we're going to bring in our butternut squashes, and then I'm going to just spray them lightly with some olive oil. You could also rub on some olive oil with your hands. And then I'm going to sprinkle some coarse sea salt, which is just going to enhance the flavor as they roast. And add a few dashes of pepper. And then we just simply turn the squashes upside down. I like to alternate them, and then we'll put it into a 400-degree oven for 1 hour. So here's our butternut squash after 1 hour in the oven, and you can see how the skin is just really soft. And then if we flip these over, we just have this beautifully roasted flesh inside. And all we have to do is take our big spoon and scoop it right out and drop it into a bowl. And this will give us about 4 cups of roasted butternut squash, and then we'll set this aside until later. And in the background, I was boiling my elbow noodles according to the package directions. And you want them to be al dente, which means they're just starting to soften, but not completely soft. And that's because they'll continue to soften when they bake later in our pan. So I'm just going to drain these and set them aside. Next, we want to prepare our remaining ingredients so they're all ready to go. So we're going to start with 4 cloves of garlic. I'm just going to dice them nice and small. And we're going to saute these, and then they're going to get blended in with our sauce. Now, it wouldn't be called mac and cheese without some cheese, and we're going to grate 3 cups of cheese. Now, you can buy the pre-cut grated cheese from the store, but it's been coated with cellulose to keep the pieces from sticking together. So I found it works way better to just use a block cheese and grate it yourself, because that's going to melt down the smoothest. And you can use any of the hard cheeses that you like. I'm going to use a combination of just a sharp cheddar cheese as well as a white Vermont cheese. So I'm just grating them up using some elbow grease until I have about 3 pressed cups of cheese. Next, we want to slice half of an onion. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of this hack, but I just tried this for the first time last week. And that is to put a wet paper towel on your cutting board next to your onion where you're going to be cutting. Because basically, the onion vapors are looking for the nearest source of water, and we want them to be attracted to the paper towel instead of our eyes. Then I'm just going to cut my onion in half, peel back the outer layer, and then just give them a nice rough chop. Now we're going to be sauteing these, and then they're going to get blended up nice and smooth, so they don't have to be chopped super fine. And how about that? No tears. This paper towel trick really worked. Now we want to saute our onions and garlic, and this will not only give them great flavor, but it's also going to soften them down before we mix them into our sauce. So I'm just using my Dutch oven, and then I brought the heat to a medium-high. And then I'm going to add about a tablespoon of some light olive oil. So we'll go ahead and add in our onions. And then we'll give those a quick stir, coat them in the oil. And that's been about a minute or so, and they're starting to soften, so I'll go ahead and add in the garlic. This is where it really starts to smell good. And I'll also add a couple pinches of salt just to enhance the flavor. And now that the onions are all translucent and soft, we'll go ahead and turn off our heat. And then we're just going to transfer them to our blender. I'm just using my Vitamix. Now we'll add our additional ingredients to our blender for our sauce, which includes 1 cup of cottage cheese, and this is going to add just a really delicious flavor and cheesiness and a boost of protein, and no one will ever know it's there. And then we're going to add 1 cup of vegetable stock. And I prefer to use this better than bouillon because I can store it in my fridge and I don't have to store a lot of cartons of vegetable stock. So all I have to do is add 1 teaspoon for 1 cup of water. Just give that a mix. And then pour that right in. And for seasonings, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt and 2 teaspoons of paprika, which will also just enhance that beautiful orange mac and cheese color. And then we can add in our 4 cups of roasted butternut squash. Oh, that looks so beautiful. Wow, that color is amazing. Now I'll just take this over to my blender base and blend until smooth. Well, I blended this for about a minute, and now we have, now we have this beautiful, gorgeous sauce, but we're not done yet. Next, we're going to create our roux, and then we'll add our sauce as well as our cheese. Now, even if you don't have a gluten allergy, I have found that using almond flour instead of regular flour in the roux is really delicious. So we're going to start by melting 2 tablespoons of butter. So I'll move this butter around and let it deglaze our pan, and then it can get all the flavor from when we sauteed our garlic and our onions. And then we're going to add 1/4 cup of almond flour. And we'll stir that in. And then we just want this to become well incorporated and start to bubble. That smells so good. The nuttiness in that almond flour just smells amazing. And now that it's thick and bubbly, we can slowly add in our almond milk. Just stir that around. Slowly add a little more. Wow, that smells even better. And then you'll want to adjust your heat if necessary to be able to keep it at a low simmer. So I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit. And then I'll let this simmer for about 2 to 3 minutes and let it continue to thicken. It's been about 3 minutes, so now we can add in our sauce. Now using my spatula, make sure I can get out as much as I can. Now I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit and then stir this all together. And then my favorite part is adding in the cheese, which is adding in all the happiness. And then stir that into our mixture until it melts down. Giant pot with melted cheese. Yes, this is very #satisfying. Now that our cheese is all incorporated, we can go ahead and turn off the heat. Now this is a really good time to sample your sauce and make sure you're happy with the saltiness level. That's perfect. Now you want it to be a little bit on the saltier side because it's going to be mixed in with all of your pasta in your baking dish. Now we want to take your 9 by 13 baking dish and then spread it really well with some non-stick. And I'm just using some olive oil. And then we can add our pasta that's just been hanging out waiting for their turn. And now we get to pour in all that cheesy goodness. So we're just going to pour it right over the top of our pasta into the pan. Oh my goodness, that looks amazing. Now we can just go through with our spatula and just stir the cheese mixture right into the pasta. They get to party in the baking dish. Now it might look like you have a lot of sauce, but it's all going to soak in with those noodles as they bake in the oven. I like to go in and make sure it looks nice and chunky on top. So I'm just going to go around and clean up the edge so that this cheese sauce doesn't get overly browned. Well, now it's ready for the crumble topping. In a small mixing bowl, I'm going to combine 3 tablespoons of melted butter with 1/2 cup of almond flour. This is going to give it such a delicious nutty flavor and keep it gluten-free. And for some seasoning, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Even though there is garlic in the sauce, I want to make sure the crumble has some too. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a few dashes of pepper. So I'm just going to take a block of Parmesan cheese and then grate up about 1/2 cup. Can never have too much cheese. And then just take a fork and mix these together. And then it's going to have kind of this pasty consistency, which is perfect. And then we can just scoop it into our hand and crumble it right on top of our macaroni. Now it's ready to go into a 375-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes or until that top is starting to turn a golden brown. Well, this just came out of the oven after 29 minutes and you can see that the top is just perfectly toasted. As we scoop in here on the side, you can see that the macaroni is just super soft and oh, so cheesy, and it's just all been really well incorporated. Oh, that looks so good. Sure it's not too hot? That is so good. As soon as I bite in, I get those rich, cheesy flavors, but there's so much additional depth to it with that roasted butternut squash, as well as the onion and the garlic. And it delivers on its name of being mac and cheese, because all that cheese is delicious. And I love the crispiness and flavor that comes in from the almond crumble that's on top. Well, I seriously feel like a kid again, but I guarantee the mac and cheese I ate as a kid did not taste as good as this. And I love that it's made with clean, natural, nutrient-dense ingredients that are going to leave me feeling good even after I eat it. And everyone in your group is going to love this dish regardless of whether or not they have a gluten allergy. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen, and I've included a link to the full recipe, and it's in the video description below, which takes you to my website, gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you know someone else who you think would love this recipe, please share this video with them. And I cannot wait to have you hang out with me again in my kitchen.